Dr. Nigel Clarke, Jamaica's Department of Finance, is making waves on the global stage, not surprising at all. Before he takes on his new role as Deputy Managing Director at the IMF, we'll hear his reflections, just his reflections on both what he did and what he probably, you can't reflect that we don't do it just yet, but we will talk about that. Morning, sir. Welcome to Smile Jamaica. How are you, sir?
I'm well. Thank you for having me. Neville, thanks for having me, Simone.
Yeah. I took this out because the headline says, by Mr. Lance Nita, it says, Jamaica needs Clarke more than the IMF does. And I read a paragraph. He says he has been an awesome Minister of Finance. Some say he is arguably the best. He displays confidence without swagger. Is disciplined but not ascetic, charming but focused, and displays the all-important ability to explain his policies to any level of the population inclined to listen. I don't know if I ask if you agree with that, but very kind words.
I didn't see that article. I need to go. Where it was in what?
It's in the Gleaner today. And
today? Right, I didn't read it today.
Lance Nita.
Okay.
But I think most of us would agree with that, sir. Tell us what happened. How did this come about? Did they put it out and you applied for it? Did they just call you and say, we want to give you a position? How did this work?
I'll tell you, frankly, I mean, it was over the summer. I got a text from the managing director of the IMF that she wanted to talk. I thought she wanted to talk about Beryl, but it's way after Beryl here. And says, sure, tomorrow morning. I was driving to the country. I was driving to Westmoreland, which, I have some roots in Westmoreland. And on the way, she called, and we spoke about issues, spoke about Beryl, and spoke about other things. And then she mentioned this opportunity and put it to me. That was just literally several weeks ago. It was over the summer.
Were you shocked? Caught off guard?
I was certainly caught off guard for sure. It wasn't something that I was expecting at that time. I have been presented with offers from Washington institutions. Shall we just keep it broadly like that? Before, I've had several offers before.
During your tenure as Minister?
Yes, during my tenure as Minister of Finance. Okay. Yes, several. This would be the fourth. Okay, I've turned down the previous three. This, however, and those were significant in terms of the level of authority and scope of responsibility. This, though, is at a different level, right? To be Deputy Managing Director of the IMF, a global institution, is something that, after reflection, as difficult as it was, I felt it was the right thing to do. Having a Jamaican being presented with that opportunity, I believe I got to go where no Jamaican has gone before, where no Caribbean person has gone before, where nobody from Central America has gone before, in one of the world's most preeminent financial institutions. I felt that I had a responsibility to take that up.
I have a twofold question out of that. The first is, how much did you agonize? I heard one Jamaican journalist ask you, why are you abandoning Jamaica? Mm-hmm. And I wonder if there are Jamaicans who see it that way. That's the first. The second is, being in this position, anomalous position of being the first Jamaican, first Caribbean, first from, do you feel like a lot of people are looking at you now as a Jamaican to do things for Jamaica, almost like, you're looking out for us in particular, because that's not really a practical.
Yes. So you remember as well, this is the highest position that a non-EU citizen can get, right? By convention, the International Monetary Fund, a EU citizen is the managing director. That's a convention for the last 80 years. So the highest position that a non-EU citizen can have in this preeminent global financial institution is that of Deputy Managing Director. So to put that in context. You asked a question about, yes, so look, the IMF is owned by 190 countries. It serves 190 countries. Its largest shareholders clearly are the Western democracies. The fund, as the managing director has pointed out, wants to focus on, ensuring that lesser developed countries, small economies, island states have the opportunity to have stable economies and to grow and to develop. And that, will require innovation while sticking to the core principles of the fund. And I believe that, the managing director wants to sort of provide an environment where the members of the fund can be served even better than they are now. And my addition to the management team is seen as supportive of that mission.
I mentioned something from the Gleaner, and now this is the editorial from the Observer. I think it was a couple of days ago. Effectively, as you were saying, there's only one deputy managing director position at the IMF open for the rest of the world, inclusive of Brazil, Mexico, Nigeria, South Africa, Saudi Arabia, India, Indonesia, and more than 150 other countries. That this position should be offered to a Jamaican and approved by the IMF Executive Board in the context of Jamaica's politically minuscule 0.1%.
0.1, sir.
0.1% shareholding is therefore of profound significance. I know you as a humble person, but this must lick off your head.
No, it is. I mean, people have been making much of the fact that there are 4 deputy managing directors, yes. But the management structure of the IMF reflects its ownership structure. As I mentioned, the EU states own 24% of the fund. And so by convention, they've always had the managing director role. The United States and China are the next 2 largest shareholders. The United States, China, and Japan are the next 3 largest shareholders, if you count the EU as a bloc. And the United States has 16.5%, so they always have a managing director, the first managing director, deputy managing director spot. The China and Japan have 6% each, and they always have 2 deputy managing director spots reserved for them. So 3 of the deputy managing director spots go to a U.S. citizen, a Japanese citizen, and a Chinese citizen by convention. There's only 1 deputy managing director spot open for the rest of the entire world, which includes all of those countries mentioned. We're talking about the rest of 186 countries in the world. So yes, others have political weight to support their candidacy. Jamaica with, as you said, 0.1% share has no political weight to support. So it's all based on other stuff, which.
Well, and by other stuff we mean your performance.
Well, it's based on some notion of merit. Yes.
Simone already asked the question and you answered already, but I'll ask it again. Was there one single reason why you decided, I'm going to take this?
I wouldn't.
Or if you had to, the biggest reason you decided, I am going to take this.
Neville, as I said, there's no one reason here or there. When you put the significance of the role is an opportunity to, though a little further removed, have impact on a much larger scale, on a global scale. The things that I care about, I'll have an opportunity to bring to the forefront, not just on the scale of Jamaica, but the scale of the world. It sounds kind of scary to say it that way, but it is true. And an opportunity like that, and Jamaica, where it is now, I believe we have macroeconomic stability entrenched. Once we make the right decisions, Jamaica's best days are going to be ahead. So I thought that, presented with this opportunity, I also have to. I have a responsibility to take it. I mean, I don't want to I hate to make parallels. I mean, this would be very, one can get into a lot of trouble from doing this, but I'd like, Bama, I'm nothing nowhere near that. This total disclaimer, I am.
Say what you have to say.
But what I have to say. Bob Marley couldn't have achieved what he achieved if he stayed in Jamaica. Right? So if you're going to have, if the things you care about, if you want them to be impactful around the world, you can't do it from here. Right? So there comes a point where if you're presented with that opportunity, there is a responsibility to take.
You've been in finance for a while. You're going to a financial position. How different might this be? Because you're talking about 0.1. And now you're going to be looking at the entire world. How different might this be?
Yeah, it's going to be very different. First, just the structure of the fund. The fund has you always hear about a staff level agreement. That the IMF has reached a staff level agreement with Jamaica. Well, what they mean by that is that there are 3,000 members of staff who are very highly accomplished. Most of them have PhDs and very smart people. And then there is management. So they reach a staff level agreement and they present it to the management. The management consists of the managing director and the 4 deputy managing directors. And the managing director is an executive managing director. She's chairman of the board of the fund. And the deputies chair the board of the IMF in her absence. So the role it will be one kind of different from what I have here, but one of the deputy managing director will be have responsibility for 60, 70 countries around the world, and would be responsible for working with staff on those countries and chairing the board meeting when those countries are up for consideration at the IMF. So you're actually sitting in the chair if you're responsible for country X or country Y, country X or Y are up for discussion and the staff are presented on country X or Y, the deputy managing director is in the chair with executive directors from the capitals around the world, from Germany and from Japan and from the United States and from Brazil and Mexico, from the large countries of the world. And, it's about being able to understand the situation and have policy advice that is appropriate. Coming as a Minister of Finance that has been in IMF programs for most of the past 13 years and been mostly successful, and having implemented a host of reforms, I believe that I'll be able to bring a practical perspective, an understanding of the orthodoxy of classical economics and even development economics, but also the practical approach of having to deal with a parliament and deal with a people and coming on media and talking and explaining. And that might be a perspective that could be useful.
It's clear you're uniquely positioned. You've come a long way from the young man who was packing shells in the supermarket that one day you plan to own.
You have a good memory.
Long way from Monroe, a long way, many degrees later at some of the best institutions in the world. It's so impressive to know that people were just looking at your work from afar to recruit you for this position. I know nothing daunts you, Minister. You don't seem like somebody who has any fears. But walking in, is there a level of, it's not trepidation, it's not intimidation, it's how do you walk into this position? Are you supremely confident or does it scare you just a little bit to be walking into such vastly unknownish territory?
Yes, a little bit of fear is a good thing because it motivates you to make sure you're prepared, right? You respond to fear with preparation, and the more prepared you are, there's the less fear that you feel.
Correct.
So absolutely, it's a different environment, in many ways an unknown environment, and so there will be a little bit of that, but faith in God, so far has the Lord taken you. Yeah,
He will take you forward.
Exactly, and he doesn't put anything before you that he doesn't think that you can handle. So, I use faith to deal with the unknown.
Yeah, it's interesting. First time I interviewed Dr. Clarke was about music.
Yes.
Philharmonic Orchestra.
Oh, right. Man.
Yeah, that was the first couple of times. We're going to go for a break and come back. Just before we go, how do you respond to Nita, who says Jamaica needs Clarke more than the IMF does? Respond to Mr. Nita, then we go for a break and come back.
Or you want to respond to him after the break?
I say after. Let's give the minister a couple of minutes to think.
I kind of agree with him quietly.
But he's right.
I agree with him quietly.
We'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody. We've been speaking with Dr. Nigel Clarke, Honourable Minister, on his tenure as Minister of Finance as he looks to, I'm going to say, leave us at the end of October. It sounds so final, but it's not. You'll be far, but your heart is still here, I know. Is it me, or is he looking particularly introspective this morning and subdued? Is it?
Yes, he is.
Okay. Yes?
I think he really wants to stay, but he doesn't know how to tell me that he wants to stay. I want to start back with the question that Simone asked about maybe Jamaicans expect you to do. Well, we're good now, because we have somebody in the IMF say, if we want 50 million trillion with us call and say, Dr. Nigel, send on that thing. But do you think in a serious way that maybe even the region, because everyone has said this is a great move. I haven't read anything from anywhere that said, no, man, this foolish is this, or we should just stay. Do you think that it's an expectation that the region will say, well, we have our man in there now, so things should be good?
Well, I think that there is an expectation that I'd be able to bring, in an authentic way, the perspective of small island states that probably isn't as
represented,
as well represented. Jamaica is represented quite ably by Canada, in whose constituency we are, but to have somebody who is an actual policymaker in the Caribbean, can help to bring some of the nuances to greater focus. I think that's reasonable. But but it probably would not be reasonable to believe that, to put it in the way that you have described it, right, that you have your sort of personal IMF-er there.
We are like that.
Call who can pull strings for you if basic rules and principles are not being abided by. Right. That would not be reasonable.
To manage those expectations.
Right. But look, people, everybody in a position of authority, whether in Jamaica or globally, internationally, carries their own personal experiences with them. That's just, you carry your personal experiences as hosts of the show, and those experiences influence you and it influences decisions that you make, and that's why it's important to have diversity. Is always very important. So, in that way, I think that people are correct that having somebody who has had my experience that has so far been absent in the management levels of these global institutions is important, and hopefully can help to move the ball a little bit forward in certain respects.
So what you have done now as Minister of Finance, you set a serious precedent as far as performance is concerned and some of the wins under your tenure. And as you look to leave, I wonder for you, what would be your biggest highlight? There are several. And whether you think that a lot of the talk about, big shoes and there's nobody really left to fill it. Some people are worried about what happens next. What say you to those folks?
Well, let's just talk about the things that one of the things that I'm certainly take a lot of pride in is, along with my colleagues and with the support of the Prime Minister, Jamaica, taking pride in the fact that Jamaica has entrenched macro stability. Right? Jamaica has gone 45 years or more with chronic instability. Unemployment was was double digits. It averaged 14% for the 25 years before 2015. Unemployment is at historic record lows. It was 4%. It's now 5%. Our debt, which has been a noose around our neck for many, many years, is at its lowest levels as at March gone in 30 years, and by the end of this fiscal year should be the lowest in at least 40 years. Interest used to consume the vast majority of our tax revenues, like way over 50%, 60%, 70%, that kind of number. Interest today is 15% of our revenues. We have the highest level of foreign exchange reserves in our central bank in our history, over $5 billion US. In 2016, we had $2 billion US. The highest credit rating in our history. Inflation is at 5%. Those, I think, are what I'm very proud of, and those can remain, Simone, and just remain in the background while we work on other problems like education and health and social safety net and so on, transportation. Now, the reason why I have confidence that entrenchment of stability can remain is that we have the institutions that And one of the things I'm very proud of is having had the policy responsibility and led the policy to make the central bank independent, where the political directorate can't interfere in affairs. So it's just focused on achieving low and stable inflation. And the government can't borrow from the central bank outside of a disaster and come into Parliament and telling the people of Jamaica. For 45 years, the government could borrow from the central bank, and that was one of the reasons for our the indisciplined way in which we ran our fiscal affairs. Very proud of the Independent Fiscal Commission, that is a watchdog on the fiscal probity of the government. Quite proud of the fact that we have an institutional mechanism for appointment of persons to public body boards to ensure that we have the right technical capacity and experience on our public body boards. Very proud of having this was started before my time, but very proud that was able to achieve bringing procurement to the electronic world. So all procurement in government over $1.5 million has to be done on an electronic portal, which allows us to follow, to track, to measure. Very proud of my Citizens Guide to the budget. And then, the tax reforms that we brought, very proud we were able to abolish ad valorem stamp duty, abolish the minimum business tax, abolish the asset tax for non-financial businesses, very nuisance and distortionary taxes, reduce transfer tax from 5% to 2% on real estate transactions and on financial transactions. We're able to raise the de minimis import duty threshold from $50 to $100.
Yes, many people
raise the passenger one from $500 US dollars to $1,000. We able to marginally increase the income tax threshold from 1.5 to 1.7, increase the threshold for pensioners as well, lower the duty on electric vehicles coming in, put in MSME tax threshold of $375,000 for every small business in this country.
We are grateful. Thank you.
Lower the GCT from 16.5 to 15, and a number of other things on the tax front. And that's before, the student loan is one of the things I'm very proud of, that we were able to abolish student loan for abolish guarantors for student loans and to provide write-offs of student loans for persons from charities. If you work for a charity and you have a student loan, 10% of your balance is written off every year. And something that has gone unnoticed is that prior to my stewardship of a student loan, when you got into trouble and you paid it back, the money would first go to penalties and then to interest and only then to principal. Wow. So you'll be paying and paying and paying and the balance is not going. Yeah. We changed that the first payment goes to the principal and then to interest and penalties, which allows the balance to go down for people who find themselves in delinquent positions. And, if public sector transformation, where we're able to reduce the number of public bodies from 190 to 140 through mergers and closures and reintegrations. Obviously, the compensation reform, which was probably the most challenging thing that I took on, but we were able to get it done. 325 scales down to 16. We introduced, paternity leave in the public service.
A lot. You've said a lot. We
introduced adoption leave in the public service. Yeah. We extended maternity leave from 40 days to 60 days. Introduced the micro scholarship, STEM scholarship. 1,250 persons to go and learn to become science and math teachers at MICO. The UTEC scholarship, 1,000 persons to pursue science and technology at UTEC. The Marcus Garvey public sector graduate scholarship. Over 5 years, persons going to Oxford and Johns Hopkins and people going overseas to study who work for the public service to come back to serve Jamaica. And I could go on, but never wants to come in. So
I want to comment, but your memory very good, sir, to remember all of that. I haven't heard it recently, but over the years, we keep hearing that every time we're in trouble, we go to the IMF. And people say, why we need to go? We just keep borrowing. Are we going to see the day that we don't need to go to the IMF, even if Dr. Clarke is there?
Right. So that's a very good point. One of the things that I'm very proud of, Neville, is that we have entrenched stability. Jamaica has more buffers today than we've had before. before. We have disaster risk buffers. We have a first country to do a catastrophe bond. We have a contingency reserve of over $5 billion. We have multi-layered disaster risk facilities, which I've been very proud to be associated with and to have led from a policy perspective. Jamaica is now at a position where the products we can access from the IMF are non-intrusive. They're just guarantors, meaning facilities that you need if there's a problem. Today, Jamaica is just completing a precautionary liquidity line with the IMF, which is a product that we could never access before because we didn't have the stability. We've had it for the past 18 months. It expires in March of 2025, and it's non-intrusive in that it does not, as long as you are running your economy in a responsible way, it's not something that is going to interfere with the allocation of resources in the country. So Jamaica is at a stage, Neville, where we can access products that make us stronger, but that also preserves our ability to make our own decisions, and that's a good thing. I mean, at the end of the day, the IMF exists to preserve financial stability in the world, which is a good thing. Jamaica is a small, tiny country in the scheme of a global world that experiences a lot of economic shock. So there can be times when the shocks are so dislocating that having access to a lender of last resort is not a bad thing. But Jamaica today is in much stronger position than before, and it will get stronger. Jamaica, if we continue on this track, Jamaica 10 years from now will be much stronger than we are now. So our best days are ahead.
Doc, can we talk? Well, I beg out a segment, right? Yeah. So if you can give us 10 more minutes?
Sure.
After out of news?
Sure.
Then we can come back and lead this, because Dr. Clarke spent the entire segment talking about his achievements. We could be here until next week Tuesday with that, but we're going to lead this interview, wrap it up neatly after we come out of news. So please stay with us. We're back after this. All right, folks, we're back, wrapping up with Dr. Clarke, who has graciously agreed to give us 5 minutes more. So we're not to be concerned about continuity. You've made that clear. You've set plans in place. Where are we now? What's happening now? You're wrapping up, hands in different pots, just to make sure that come the end of October, you are good to go and we are good to go.
Yes. So, I mean, it's business as usual in that all the things that I had sort of planned to do in September and planned to do in October, all of those are going to be done. And you'll see the progress. You might want to have me back to discuss some of the things that we're going to be doing over the next couple of weeks, which have always been programmed. So, Jamaica is a mature democracy with systems and institutions and procedures, and I have every confidence that the trajectory of the economy will continue to be strengthened, and opportunity will continue to expand for the Jamaican people.
I don't know if you have any say in your successor, sir, but can you give us a hint?
No, that's the Prime Minister. Prime Minister's prerogative.
Mm-hmm.
Can you give us a hint who it might be, sir?
You may want to have the Prime Minister here, and he can answer that question.
Good answer.
Sir, you've been doing so wonderful all morning. Why would you want to stay away from that one?
And so can you tell me a little bit more about what there seems to be a very subdued energy and spirit. Is there a little bit of that?
Very reflective. I mean, as much as it's something that I'm going to do, it's very difficult to do. Very emotionally and psychologically difficult to actually do it. So yes, you will sense sort of a reflective mood that I have at this time. Yes.
Yeah.
Finally, from me, sir, I suspect the opposition might not have the glowing tributes as the rest of the country, even though some might. But I think most of the country would be impressed with what you have done, sir. Mm-hmm. And we all wish you all the very
Thank you. Well,
best.
Senior members of the opposition have all written to me privately on WhatsApp. You know, the nature of our politics is such that, you have to say what, it's unfortunate nature of our politics in that parties have, our political parties have cornered our politics. Politics is supposed to be about people, about individuals, yeah? And we have, in Jamaica, subordinated individuals to a party. So on an individual basis, senior members of the opposition have been very warm and generous in their private remarks to me on WhatsApp, which I greatly appreciate.
God bless you and your family. God bless what you're going to do. And as you land, you send for me, Sergio.
Oh, jeez.
I mean, oh, geez.
No, we're trying to do things right, not mess it up.
Thank you for having me, Neville.
Wow.
Sir, if you want to get this right away, just send for me and I'll sort
May I just ask, because when you came into this, you were new to politics.
Yes.
So how was the foray for you?
It was a huge culture shock.
Yeah.
My transition was very, very slow and took a long time. I was in the Senate from 2013 to 2015, then as Ambassador of Economic Affairs, where I worked closely with the Prime Minister for 2 years. So I got to see things very close, but nothing prepares you for actually entering the arena.
Yep.
And I did experience my fair share of culture shock, but I also experienced a lot of things that were great and fantastic. Jamaica is a country, I like to say, with elephant DNA. The DNA we have, DNA, you have a DNA as an ant, you have a DNA elephant, DNA for a dog, cat, mouse, right? Our DNA, in the right conditions, can make us an elephant. Yeah. We have the structures and systems for a big country.
Punch above our weight.
Exactly.
We have to go, sir. God bless you, sir.
Thank you for having me, Neville. Thank you, Simone.
Oh, no.
I hope I'll be back before I go.
Yes.
Yes.
I'll be
we'll
back. We'll ensure that you're back.
All right.
That is just to get me on board. And the Honourable Minister of Finance and the Public Service, Dr. Nigel Clarke.
All right. What to expect from this year's staging of Microsoft Day? That is next.